In this video, I'm going to talk a bit about the #1 reason why most people give up before they reach success. And I'm also going to go into a bit about how you can be more successful and why you should believe in the journey and not the destination. So stay tuned. If you've seen my video about dopamine fixes, which I'll link to at the top of the video, you'll know that we as human beings are hardwired to learn specific activities based on the feedback we get for them. Now in many cases this is just a little dopamine hit that is completely irrelevant to what we're actually doing, and it's just something coming from the food that we're eating or a drug that you're taking or an activity that you're performing that hardwires it into your brain. But the reward system also learns based on successes and failures. And what I mean by this is, if you have an immediate success at something, your brain starts to release dopamine the same as it would for any other activity that causes a dopamine release. And when it does this, you start to hardwire into your brain that what you're doing is right. And this seems on paper like a good way of doing things. If you do things right, you get that dopamine release and you keep doing things right, and so you get good results. And when you do things wrong, your brain gets frustrated and you learn that this isn't the way to repeat things. But there are many areas in life where this system is completely backwards and limits our success. So let me give you an example of this. Say for example that you're playing a game of chance, and you have a particular position in the game of chance. Maybe it's poker, maybe it's something else, and you have an 80% chance to win against the person that you're playing against if you play in this certain way. So you play in this way has an 80% chance to win versus the other person's 20%. So you're ahead. Now if you win, then great, your brain learns that you've used the correct strategy. If you lose, then your brain thinks that you haven't used the correct strategy. It ignores the fact that there was an element of chance, and so you used the correct strategy but you failed on the chance part, and it treats it the same as if you just failed all around. So your brain has now learned that you've done something wrong, and now you're kind of being punished for doing the right thing. So your brain starts to treat it as if it's something that you shouldn't do again. And as someone who used to play a bit of poker, this is actually something that poker players often struggle with. People get into poker and they learn perhaps the mathematics of it, because there are certain hands that are more profitable to play, and if you play them 1,000 times over this certain way, you're going to make a small profit. But what happens is people are playing the hands in the ABC way of doing it, and then they lose when they played the correct way, and they get frustrated. They get that feeling in their brain that they've done something wrong and that they're playing wrong. So what happens is they adjust and they go from playing ABC poker, in other words profitable poker, to just completely gambling, and then they lose all their money. And this is a story that happens even to the best poker players. They go on what's called tilt and they lose. And this applies to all areas of life. When we do something right but it doesn't succeed, we believe that we've done something wrong. And the reverse is true. If we do something wrong but we get lucky and somehow succeed, then we hardwire that as being the right way to do things. So often we end up rewarding the things that we're doing wrong and punishing ourselves for the things that we're doing right just because of the results that we got. So this is why I want to suggest to you to stop being results oriented. Because if you are like that, then you're never going to get any larger success, because large success involves failing on the way to get there. You have to go through trial and error. You have to get some things wrong to learn how to get them right the best way. So you have to be okay with failing, and you have to not see it as you doing something wrong, but see it as a natural part of the process. In other words, you need to get used to loving the journey and not the destinations along the way, not the little successes and failures. Because if you do something right and you get one little success tonight, you can dance and sing all you like about how great you're doing, but if you don't carry on working harder and harder, you're not going to get any further. And if you go and do something tonight and you don't succeed, but you've tried your best and you've put in some effort and you've improved in that, if you punish yourself for that, you're just going to not do it again and you're not going to get any further. You have to know that there is an element of chance to everything you do. Some circumstances are out of your control, and there's also an element of growth. You're always going to get better at things by doing them more often and practicing and learning the skills. So failure does not mean that you are doing something wrong. Success does not mean that you are doing something right. It's only when you get continued success or continued failure over a long period of time that you can start to judge that it's your methods that are the problem. So what I suggest to you is have this attitude of not thinking about what results you get out of anything you're doing. You know, if you're, playing a sport or something and you do badly one game, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a bad player. You have to think, what was happening in this game? Perhaps the other team were doing really great. I mean, look at what the other person or the other team were doing and see what you can learn from them. See what you can learn from your own mistakes that you made during the game or from the things you did well during the game. Don't just treat it as a failure. Treat it as a learning experience, because otherwise you're not going to progress. If you treat it as a failure, you just lose motivation and you don't do any better next time. If you treat it as a learning experience, then all experiences become small successes. Because on the grand scheme of things, in the long term, in your journey, it's the failures that actually provide the most valuable lessons often. The successes, they're like a little pat on the back, just reminding you that you're doing good. But the failures, they actually tell you what you can do to do things better, what you might not want to do in future, and they give you a kind of perspective. They also kind of give you a reminder that reality doesn't always work the way that you want it to, and that you're going to have to go through some tough times. Because if you want any large measurable success, you're going to have to fall on some tough times. It's not all easy sailing. Sometimes there's going to be brick walls that you encounter where you can't seem to get any further. Sometimes there's going to be people standing in your way trying to put you down. Sometimes there's going to be obstacles just popping out of nowhere, like financial issues, or perhaps, a family member gets ill and you have to go and help them, so you can't work on whatever it is you're doing. All of these things can happen, and by focusing on the greater scheme, on the journey in the long run, and not being so narrow focused on just what's going on at the minute, then you set yourself up to progress at a greater rate and to be more mindful of what you're actually doing. I mean, think of it like this. If you were a general controlling an army in a war and a battle went really badly, if you just took it as you've lost, then you're going to completely lose all of the other battles. Hundreds of thousands of men might die because of that decision of yours. Whereas if you say, okay, this battle was lost, what can we learn from it immediately? How can I fight better in the next battles? How can I win the war? Then you're going to go out and you're going to do better, and you're going to have an advantage that the enemy didn't have, because the enemy, they just had a success. They didn't learn anything from that battle. They just did things their normal way. Whereas you learn something. You learn something about them. You learn something about yourself. So now you can come back to that situation and do things better. So what I want to leave you with for this video is the idea that you should look at every situation as something that you can learn from, and don't fall into the trap of thinking that the immediate results that you get are a result of what you're doing. Yes, your methods and how you do things are going to affect your results, but in the short term it could all be down to luck, and you should never trust the results until you've got a large sample of results. In other words, until you've got 5 years of your work to look at, or 5 years of your sport that you've been playing to look at. And in the meantime, until you've got those results, look at every single success and every failure, and look at what you did right and what you did wrong, and be honest with yourself, and make notes, and see what you can do better. Whether it's, gaining social confidence and going out and getting to know people, or whether it's, attracting the right partner, whether it's a business deal that you're working on, or a business that you're setting up. Maybe you just want to get physically fit to the maximum, and one day you haven't been able to work out quite as much. It might have been some other circumstance. You might have been perhaps ill and not known it. It's not always about the immediate results. Look at the bigger picture. Focus on the journey, not the steps along the way. That's been all for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you're interested in more content of this type, remember you can join the community by subscribing. And if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. Thanks for watching. Remember to give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Take care.